Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank God, Mr. Speaker. I thank also my fellow constituents of East Bastille, or St. Christopher I. I also thank my colleagues here on this side of the House, or my team unity colleagues, those inside the House and outside the House, Mr. Speaker, for, along with the management and staff of the various departments within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Posts, Urban Development and Transport. Mr. Speaker, in the process, I do wish to associate myself with the condolences earlier expressed in respect of the untimely demise of Sergeant Davis. Mr. Speaker, I too am saddened, but wish to just remind the family left to mourn, also the police fraternity, that once we place our trust in Almighty God, He will never let us down. I implore them, though, to be strong and to remember that death is a process. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with our commitment as a team unity administration, I am humbled to be given yet another opportunity to account for my stewardship and in the process report to the nation in the form of an update relative to the many projects upon which we have embarked for fiscal year 2018. Mr. Speaker, when one scans the order paper, one will glean that there will be a debate today on two pieces of legislation: the Data Protection Bill 2018 and the Freedom of Information Bill 2018. But truth be told, Mr. Speaker, this government, this team unity administration, has never shirked its responsibility to provide the general public, to provide this honorable House with information on a regular basis through this very agenda item, statements by ministers. And this is the first time that this has happened. It has never happened before in the 20 years of the rejected administration. And this has always been a staple on the order paper, Mr. Speaker. And it was never used to update the nation on important matters of state. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make the point very early about major capital projects. And I wish to state quite clearly that implementing major national or major capital projects is not like building a little guardhouse at the JNF hospital. It is not like just painting a public bath at Pricklepear Alley, Mr. Speaker. Implementation of capital projects, Mr. Speaker, demands that we put into place schedules of works or project schedules and drawdown of payments, Mr. Speaker, which must list times at which actions are intended to take place or the sequence of events in a chronological order in which such events are intended to take place, Mr. Speaker. It decides, Mr. Speaker, the schedule, how to order the activities and how to commit the resources, the public resources, the public money, Mr. Speaker, between the variety of activities or the variety of tasks to be undertaken. So, Mr. Speaker, in this context, I am happy to report to this Honorable House and to the nation that in accordance with the project schedule for the construction of the brand new cruise pier at Posante, one will find the pre-construction activities, for example, the designs, mobilization, and so on. And one will also find, Mr. Speaker, the construction works. I can report to this Honorable House and to the nation today, Mr. Speaker, that construction of this brand new cruise pier has now begun in earnest. I want to use that term, in earnest, Mr. Speaker. I say so because on Tuesday at 1800 hours for the ordinary man at 6 p.m., Mr. Speaker, at 6 p.m. in the night, we saw the arrival of the Ocean Traverse Nord, the dredge, Mr. Speaker, a Canadian flag vessel, arrived in port, Mr. Speaker, and according to the schedule, dredging works will commence on Friday, the 4th of May, and duration of such works, or these works, is expected to be 70 days, ending on Thursday, the 9th of August, Mr. Speaker. So that's an update in relation to the brand new cruise pier, which the signs would say, coming soon. It's here, Mr. Speaker. Coming soon. Mr. Speaker, I want to also report that when we got into office in February of 2015, I've said on many occasions, and it bears repeating, we inherited a crumbling infrastructure. And speaking specifically to SCASPA, the St. Christopher Air and Supports Authority, Mr. Speaker, you would have heard them say it had such high profitability, $12 million in profit, $40 million in profit. But truth be told again, Mr. Speaker, when you examined the deficiencies, the poor infrastructure within the corporation, one has to conclude that they sacrifice the maintenance, the upkeep of the infrastructure and the equipment for a healthy-looking balance sheet, Mr. Speaker. Because the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority wrote to the government and outlined deficiencies at the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw International Airport. And we have been forced to embark on the resurfacing of the runway, which will cost some $80 million. The reconstruction of the major taxiway, Alpha, running some $13 million. And the lighting, Mr. Speaker, the airport lighting, Mr. Speaker, as well, or the runway lighting, I should say, Mr. Speaker, we are going to put brand new lighting, modern lighting, solar lighting, Mr. Speaker, at the cost of some $800,000. With all the money they left, all the money that should have been in SIDF, Mr. Speaker, these works were left undone. Mr. Speaker, having also inherited a road infrastructure that was crumbling, one Calypsonian sang about the pothole dodging. I think it was Big Edwards. Pothole dodging. Mr. Speaker, this team unity administration had no alternative but to embark or to undertake a full rehabilitation of the Island Main Road. Mr. Speaker, as mentioned earlier, the Cabinet agreed that we will roll out our projects, including this one, in a phased manner. For that reason, some weeks ago, 5 contracts were signed by 5 local contractors on the 6th of April for the phase 1 of this project. Mr. Speaker, the scope of works includes, but it is not limited to the construction of a sidewalk from Camps Village to Ross Medical School, a sidewalk from West Farm to Challengers Village, the construction and laying of drainage pipes near Ross Veterinary School, Mr. Speaker. And the residents in that area, I'm sure, would be happy to learn that no longer, Mr. Speaker, when the rain falls, those who live on the southern side or the seaward side of the Island Main Road would not be flooded. People like my family, Lady Crosley, and others, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it also includes the construction of a U-drain near the tire place at OJ's gas station and drainage work from the Best Buy supermarket to the roundabout at Camps. When rain falls, the flood, it floods, Mr. Speaker, that area. Also drainage works from Keys Village to the airport roundabout. Remember, from number 8, we'll be happy to learn that when he's coming down from Cairn, we no longer have to really sail across the flood there. And Mr. Speaker, the total value of the 5 contracts that have been signed is $6.1 million EC dollars. And these, as I said, will be paid to all local contractors. Imagine the cascading effect that will have in our economy. But I leave that for the economists, Mr. Speaker. I can also report, Mr. Speaker, these projects are not being implemented without public consultation. We consult the stakeholders publicly. And on April the 19th, the first consultation was convened at the Old Girls' School in order to sensitize partners about the project. For example, the businesses along the Island Main Road that will be affected, the bus drivers, and including other ministries as well, Mr. Speaker. Consultation and the consultative process is the hallmark of team unity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a requirement of the contract, contractors are mandated to provide third-party or procure third-party liability insurance coverage, and 3 of those contractors have done so far. I'm advised that it is anticipated, Mr. Speaker, that by the end of this week, all insurance coverage will be in place and an advance mobilization payment will be made, after which all contractors will be given a letter of possession of the site. Work on the ground, you would then anticipate, will begin in earnest, to use that word again, by next week, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our ministry has also granted approval to the Public Works Department to sign the contracts for the paving works from the airport roundabout to Keys Village and from the camps roundabout to Challengers Village. Another important project, Mr. Speaker, and this is no doubt dear and near to the heart of my colleague from St. Christopher 4, as well as my colleague from St. Christopher 8, also the fisher folk in the Old Road area. And Mr. Speaker, I can report as well that the project, which includes the rehabilitation of the Old Road Fishing Complex breakwater, work has also gone out to tender and returned. The consultants, Mr. Speaker, are presently negotiating with the preferred contractor to finalize the source and price of the rocks from the government quarry. Negotiations, I'm told, should be completed by the end of this week. Then the consultants will submit a tender report to the Public Works Department for onward transmission to the ministry for a no objection to proceed to a contract. Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of consultation as well, Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that there will be a stakeholders meeting today, the 3rd May 2018 at 5 p.m. at the Old Road Fishing Complex, Mr. Speaker. I repeat, there will be a stakeholders meeting today at 5 p.m. at the Old Road Fishing Complex. So the stakeholders' input as well is being solicited. Rehabilitation of the Old Road Bay, Mr. Speaker, which is another component of the Island Main Road. I can report that the joints are near completed, or as they put it, 95% complete. We have received a quotation for the bathymetric survey, that's survey work in the sea, Mr. Speaker, and I am advised that as soon as this survey is done, the information will be computed and joins will be completed along with the tender document. I'm advised as well, Mr. Speaker, that the Public Works Department should be able to go out to tender around the 2nd week or 3rd week of May this year. And Mr. Speaker, finally, I must report as well that phase 1 of the East Bus Line Terminal is well on time and well on target as per schedule. And the relocation of the Vehicle Maintenance Division from the Public Works compound to the former SSMC compound is near complete, and that relocation would be finalized, and operations of that division would commence on Tuesday the 8th, that's next week Tuesday, Mr. Speaker. It is therefore anticipated that the site from whence or where the Vehicle Maintenance Division came from will then be handed over to the contractor to start the construction of the brand new East Line bus terminal, which will be completed in September 2018. And this, I must repeat, will be a relief for commuters who travel to and from Dieppe Bay to Bastille using the East Bus Line, Mr. Speaker. It would be a relief for my fellow constituents on Johnson and Branch Streets who have no privacy, who are inconvenienced or have been inconvenienced for years, Mr. Speaker. It would be a relief when that bus stop is no more on these streets, Mr. Speaker. It would be a relief to the commuters who would not have to stand in the road, on Wellington Road, on the sidewalks, exposed to the elements of the weather, Mr. Speaker, exposed to the dangers of the traffic. But come September, beg your pardon, Mr. Speaker, this would be a gift to all those people from Team Unity for our 35th anniversary of independence. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.